Hello, hello, hello. Testing check 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. Seems like we are working. Welcome to a Friday song feedback stream. This is one of my favorite things in the world to do, so I am very excited to be here tonight. I don't think anybody is here yet, but I'm going to do a little intro for those of you who are just joining us, or if you're watching the stream that gets uploaded to the channel later on, just so you kind of get a sense of what is going on. My name is Zaak Kerstetter. I'm an Ableton Certified Trainer, and I run Catalyze Academy. This is my YouTube channel where I mostly do videos on how to do different music production related things with Ableton Live or other softwares and tools and things like that. And I stream twice a week. I do a office hours kind of stream on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, where I just take questions and people can ask whatever they want related to music production. And then on Fridays, people can send me their tracks and I will take a listen to them and give them honest feedback on it, which is something that I think is super valuable. So if you are just joining us or you are here and you want to submit a track, generally I like it if you can make it to the stream to submit a track. However, if you can't, there is a link that gets pinned to the top of the chat. You can follow that link and you can put your song in there. And if you are a member of our Discord, you can do so early. So again, if you can't make it to the, Friday nights are busy for you and you can't make it to the actual stream itself, you could submit a song. I will listen to it on stream and then give feedback on stream. And then you can watch the video at your leisure whenever you want to. So that's kind of the idea. So I'm going to start off with the songs that have been kind of pre-uploaded. So a few people have submitted tracks early. So I'm going to take a look at those first, give them some feedback. And then during that time, usually other people will show up and start sending in their tracks. And that's just kind of the idea, just to hang out and talk about music and, what kind of music you're making. There are a couple of things that I generally recommend when it comes to submitting tracks. If you are going to submit a track, these are not rules necessarily, but these are guidelines or things that I kind of advise to make the experience better for both yourself as well as for me. Number one, original tracks only, please. So no remixes or things like that. For two reasons. Number one, if you are remixing somebody else's track, then it's sometimes, if I don't know the track you're remixing, I don't know what's yours and what's not yours. And so it can be hard to tell what to actually give feedback on in a situation like that. On top of that, depending on what you are sampling or what you're remixing, I could get a copyright strike for that, and I just want to avoid that. So ideally, no remixes. On top of that, ideally also works in progress. So if you've just finished a track and released it and want some feedback on it, I'm more than happy to give you feedback on that. However, it's hard once you've finished a track to go back in and make changes to it. So I prefer to give feedback on tracks that are still in progress, and that way the feedback actually means something and you can take that feedback and use it on that track. Other than that, if you are going to be here and you're going to be, you're going to have me give you feedback on a track, I would love it if you would give other people feedback on their tracks. I think one of the cool things about doing something like this is it doesn't have to be just me talking it into the screen and you receiving the information, but you can share information, you can share knowledge, you can share advice with other people, and you can receive information from other members of the community. So those are kind of my main recommendations, but it's free, it's open for anybody. This is something I just like doing, and I think it's really fun, and I think it's cool to be able to hear music in different stages at different points in different people's kind of creative trajectory. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into it and get started and see where it takes us. So the first track we got going on here is Night Path by RVR. And let me do a quick sound check to make sure this is working the way I intended it to. Sound check to make sure this is working the way I intended it to. Sound check to make sure. Cool. That is looking good. And we'll go ahead and start this from the beginning. And unfortunately, they didn't. This person didn't put their YouTube name in the spreadsheet, so I'm not sure who made this track. But if you're out there and watching this eventually, hopefully you actually get to see this. Dope. So this is a really cool track. I'm really digging this. I think normally we don't get a lot of rock videos or not videos, songs submitted. So I think this is really cool, and I think you've done a really fantastic job just nailing the kind of vibe of this like instrumental guitar centric kind of almost kind of like dark, but not like too dark kind of vibe. So I'm really digging this. However, I got a few things that I think could be tweaked that I think will make it a little better. So first off, I love the intro. Intro is crushing it. I love the guitar. I love the guitar processing. I love the weird kind of like reverse sounding sound effect you have in the background. Yeah. It might even be some like delays or reverbs coming from the guitar. There's something in the background that is helping add a lot of like texture to the guitar, which I really, really love. However, you have this first kind of build up where you have like the drums kind of build up into the drum beat. But nothing else changes. You have like drums, you have the little snare build, so you're like expecting big energy, and then just the drums come in. I think if you really want to make this transition feel more impactful, another new element needs to also be added in there. So either another new guitar layer, or maybe even like a synth layer could be really cool, or something else needs to happen simultaneously as the drums happening. Excuse me. A lot of times in arrangement, it has something called the rule of threes, which means if you want one section of a song to feel different than a different section of the song, three things should change simultaneously. So either like two new sounds come in and one sound comes out, or three sounds come in all at the same time, or three sounds go away all at the same time. That'll make it feel like it's a different part of the song. And in this situation, you'd have this build up and then just the drums come in, and it doesn't feel like as impactful to me as I think it could. One thing you could also consider is you have these strings that come in a little later. So maybe have the strings come in as part of that transition, potentially. I don't know. I just think there needs to be one or two more elements that change simultaneously as when the drums come in to really make that impactful. The other thing I think needs a little bit of love is I think the drums are good. It's two issues though, maybe three issues depending on how you look at it. Number one, the hats are too loud. They're also very consistent. Like they sound electronic because the volume of the hi-hats is exactly the same all the way through, and the rhythm of the hi-hats is exactly the same all the way through. So it sounds a little quantized and it sounds a little bit robotic. And so I think like whereas the guitar has its very natural feel. So it sounds like the drums are done in MIDI, but the guitar is done by a person. And that kind of contrast, I think, could use a little bit of love. So put a little bit of swing or a little bit of groove on the hats, or change up the rhythm so it's not always this like super consistent rhythm with the hats. And then turn the volume down and also add a little bit of variance with the velocity. I think that'll do a lot of good. I also think you could probably compress the drums a little bit more. They sound a little quiet. They sound a little bit far away. So a little bit of compression on like the drums as a whole could be a little good, and maybe a tiny bit less reverb. Mostly on like the kick and the snare, a little bit less reverb and a little bit more volume or a little bit more compression, depending on how you want to do it. But other than that, I like the drums and a little more variation on the hi-hats. And then over here, you got the strings that come in. So these strings sound very synthetic to me. They sound like they were made in either Contact or one of the live string instruments, which it's really hard to get away from that kind of like synthetic sound if that's what you're using. You can try using like fancier plugins or like different libraries for strings to help smooth that a little bit. But I've found oftentimes if you're trying to mask the fact that these are not real strings, just cram a bunch of reverb on them, and that helps kind of blend them in a little bit better and makes them feel a little more real. And that's like one of my techniques for using synthetic strings sound a little more real. But ideally, if you have a situation where you have access to a violinist or a cellist or an actual person who plays those instruments, having them record on top of it is really the way to go. That'll make your life so much easier. And then you can blend the fake strings with the real strings, put them together, and actually get something that sounds really cool and really feels alive. Love the guitar solo. The guitar solo is crushing it. Don't do anything about that. I also really love this transition where you kind of reset things. And I like that the guitar is a little different afterwards. And then you kind of another build up here. which I really love. And I think you could maybe for me, if I was going to change anything about the arrangement, maybe make this area a little bit shorter and maybe make this area a little bit longer. I think you kind of get the idea from this part because this goes on for like 3 minutes. But here we only get this for a little bit. And I think playing around with this a little bit more, expanding a little bit more as like another part of your arrangement, I think could be totally worth it. I don't think the whole thing needs to be longer. I think the length is about good where it is. But I do think this part could be a tiny bit shorter and this could be a little bit longer, but the whole thing overall remains about the same length. But yeah, this is a super cool track. Like I said, very different from a lot of the things I've been hearing people have been submitting so far. So I'm digging it. I like it quite a bit. Really cool vibe. Love the guitar. Just dial in those drums and dial in the arrangement a little bit more and maybe play with the strings and see where you can go with it. If it were me, those are things I kind of noticed off the top. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And I don't think you're in chat right now. So hopefully you end up watching this video later on. And if you let me know in the comments section when this video gets posted what you think of the feedback. All right, and then let's jump over to another track. Also, if there's anybody out there who is just joining us, if you would like to submit a track, the link to submit a track is pinned to the top of the chat. You can just go in there, click on that. It'll take you to the spreadsheet, and you just toss in a link, and it gets added to the list, and I will take a listen to whatever it is you're working on. Any style, any genre, whatever you're into. All right, here we got another track from Savara. So he had a track, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago. So welcome back. And we'll go ahead and take a listen to it. Interesting. Cool. So we got a lot of really cool stuff going on here, but I feel like there's a few major things that if you were to dial in, I think would change a lot about how this track kind of works and kind of flows together. So first off, it sounds like you're kind of going for like a housey kind of feel here. And I think the big thing that stuck out to me more than anything else is melodically, you are all over the place. There's no central thematic melodic element, and it oftentimes feels like the bass is kind of holding the like kind of main theme of the song, which is not unheard of and it's not necessarily a bad thing. But you have lots of different melodic parts that change all the time. So like over here, you have this weird bassy part, and then you hear this plucky part. Here's still the plucky part. And then you have like a kind of similar plucky part, but they're all playing different things. So I think you need to pick like one of those major sounds. If it were me, it'd probably be the plucky guy. Like that one there. I think that'd probably be the one I'd pick. And spread it out throughout the arrangement. So it's not just in this one section, but it kind of like fills more roles and it helps kind of make the whole arrangement feel a little bit more cohesive and kind of put together. And then probably cut out some of the other ones. And then take like a main melodic idea and then create variations on that for the different parts of the song. So instead of having entirely new melodic parts for each part of your song, you have one main melodic part that changes and grows, evolves as the song changes. I think that'll help out a lot. It'll take a little bit of the pressure off of the bass line to be the main element. And I think it will make the song feel a lot more cohesive. Other than that, I like this bass line. I think it needs to change a little bit over time. Hey, John, welcome. Cool, yeah, I saw somebody was adding something to the spreadsheet. Great, perfect. We got this one and then one more and then you. So feel free to hang out and just chill out for a little bit and then we'll get to yours very shortly. So I like the bass line. I think it could be a little thicker. It could be a little bigger. I think maybe like toss a saturator on it or layer it up. Right now it's sounding a little thin for this style of music. I think for other styles of music, you can probably get a bass line that sounds like this. But here I want it to sound a little bit bigger. So more volume, more compression, more saturation, layering. These are all things you can do to help kind of beef it up. The other thing is note-wise, it's just doing the exact same thing over and over again. So just like with the melody, create a central theme and then create variations on it. Same thing with the bass line. You start with this as your bass line. And then later on in the song, it's the same sound, but playing just slightly different notes. And it'll help it make it feel a little bit more kind of new and alive. And then I think your kick's sounding decent. Your snare to me is a little bit noisy. Like it has a lot of like white noise to it, which you could EQ out a little bit. You could filter out a little bit. You could kind of downplay. You could play with like the decay of it and make it a little bit less noisy. I think it's okay for this style of music. I think you can get away with it, but it's not my favorite snare. Your drums are also missing like hi-hats. I think I heard some cymbals later on, but they were very, very quiet. A little bit of like closed hi-hats at a faster rhythm, I think will create some like cool, interesting details in between the main kick and snare pattern that I think will be really cool. And then this sound right here, the like second bass sound that comes in, I'm not into for two reasons. Number one, like I said, it distracts from the main melodic part that hasn't even happened yet. And number two, it conflicts sonically with the other bass line. Generally, when it comes to bass lines, you only want to play one at a time because when you have too many of those bass notes happening simultaneously, they clash with each other and it's not pleasant. So right here, I feel like they're clashing. And like I said, if I were up to me, I would take this part and then recycle it and put it in a different track. Like right here, this would be a great point to have a melodic element going on to make this sound more interesting. Right now, it's basically just bass and drums. This part's pretty cool. I like this. I like this use of negative space here. So that's a lot of space to put there. And I think that's a really strong creative choice to make. I think it's a bold creative choice to make. And I think you can get away with it. But I think when it comes back, it shouldn't come back with the bass line. It should come back with the drums. Because when you come back with the bass line, it's like you're resetting the energy level for this entire empty space. And so when you bring it back, you want it to feel snappy and like really kind of feel impactful when everything comes back or when the sound comes back. So I would say start with the drums here and then maybe add the bass line, or start with bass and drums right after this little empty space spot here. And drums. You also do a tempo change here, and you can get away with doing tempo changes in this kind of music. However, it's kind of hard to do to really pull off. I've heard it work before, but it's not super common that it works. So if it were up to me, I probably would not do the tempo change, or if you are going to do a tempo change, make it more subtle. It just feels a little jarring to kind of like be in this tempo area. Does it not do a tempo change? Am I just going crazy here? All right, I think there's a tempo change here. Sounds like there's a tempo change. If there's not, maybe I'm just going crazy. But yeah, and then you have this part. I think this is probably the strongest part because this feels the most cohesive because the drums, bass, and melodic parts all kind of fit well together and they all flow together. Yeah, so I like this part. I feel like this is kind of like what I want the main vibe of the song to be, and then the other parts of the song to be kind of like different variations on exploring those ideas. But yeah, that's mostly what I'm noticing here. It's like it feels a little chaotic because there's no melodic element to kind of tie the whole thing together, and that's the big thing really. And then a few of the kind of like arrangement choices feel a little strange to me. But I think it's a really cool idea. I think you have a really cool kind of solid foundation here. I think there's a lot of different directions you can go with it to really kind of like dial it in a bit more. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate you sending in that track early. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Cool. So we're jumping down to the next person. And once again, I don't think you're in chat right now, Swara, but if you have any thoughts or opinions on the feedback that I gave, feel free to put those in the comment section of the video once it gets posted, and I'll check those out later on. All right, we got another track from the Discord. This is Dig the Cat, who I think also submitted a track last week. So I appreciate you guys coming back. Nice. So this is an updated version of the track that we played last week. Um, like it a lot more. The whole thing flows a lot better. It feels a lot more well-rounded. I like that the bongo solo is still a prominent element of the track, but it's not like the entire thing. Really, really big improvements. I'm digging it quite a bit. A couple kind of minor things to kind of take a look at that are kind of like nitpicky. Number one, there is a little bit of noise, I think, coming from your kick. It sounds like your kick, there's like a little click or something that's coming with the kick. And you notice it mostly at the beginning and the end, not so much during the main part of the song. Yeah, there's a little click coming from something. So I would identify what's causing the click. I think it's the kick drum. And it might be the release of the kick or something like that is getting cut off and then just causing a little click at the end of it. So watch out for that. Clean that up. Shouldn't be too hard. So dial that in a little bit. And then other than that, I do feel like this intro, this first like, I feel like the first 15 seconds or so is a little bland. And I think that there's something to be said about having like a nice intro to your song that's really easy to like DJ mix in and out of. And that way, if like somebody wants to play your song, it's really easy to DJ it. But there's not much happening here that really makes this stand out. I mean, it's mostly just your drums and then like a little bit of that kind of background sound. And I think that due to the way that people listen to music right now, they have very, very short attention spans. You know, there's just super ADD. Like if the song is not catching their attention right at the very beginning, they're just gonna hit next and go to the next song, right? So I think there needs to be some kind of element in these first 15 seconds that helps captivate the listener. This could be sound effects, this could be noises, this could be vocal samples, this could be and literally anything you want, but something to make it feel like it's not just like I'm listening to 15 seconds of drums before I actually get to like the meat of the song. So a little bit something extra here I think could go a long way. I actually think that this section here does a really good job of kind of piquing my interest. Like if you took this and made this louder and emphasized the like the reverse sounds and things you have going on there, and then made this your intro, and then went into this section, I think that'd be totally fine with that. Because this is kind of part where I'm like, cool, I know what's going on, but I want to know what happens next, which is really what you want for your intro. Is like you want to kind of like hook the listener in and kind of grab their attention and kind of get a sense of, give them a sense of what's going on without revealing too much of it. So I think this would be a really cool intro, and I think this is, it's just not grabbing my attention the way I need an intro to. And then kind of moving on here. I like your bass line. Kick sounds good here. I think your hats are a little bit loud. That's not like a huge deal breaker here, but I think they could go a tiny bit in volume because I think they're actually taking away from the attention of the other percussive parts, like your main kind of bongo percussive part that you have going on. The other kind of like last major piece of feedback I have here is that just like Savara's track right before, melodically it feels missing something. And I think having a synth layer or a plucky sound or something that's playing some notes that kind of like make it feel a little bit like catchy, that kind of like grab your ear's attention, I think will be really, really useful. Because right now the bongo solo is kind of like is doing a lot of that work, and I think that's a very hard thing to do. Is to like you want this track to be remembered as something beyond just this is the track with bongos. So you wanted to have something that people kind of get stuck. They get stuck in people's head, and people can kind of remember, and that melody is good. Melody is going to be what does that. So that's the only other kind of major thing I think. Other than that, I'm really digging it. Like I said, I love the bongo solo. I like what you're doing here. Other than the little bit of clicky sound on the kick, the drums are sounding really solid. Bass line is working for me. Arrangement is working for me. Just the intro, a little bit more melody, and a little bit less percussion. I think that'll just about do it. You can do all that stuff. But once again, thanks for sharing that. And if you like the feedback, let me know, or you don't like the feedback, let me know in the comment section below. Also, if anybody is just recently joining us and you want to submit a track, the link to the spreadsheet is pinned up at the top of the chat, and that's where you put in the link, and then I will take a listen to it. All right, we got another track from John. All right, cool. Nice. This definitely has some very like old school Zelda kind of vibes going on. I feel like Link adventuring through the forest or whatever. A couple of things that I'm noticing. You said in the comments of the spreadsheet, so you made this on a bunch of gear from the 80s using some like experimental MIDI playback stuff. That sounds super cool, and it definitely does kind of maintain that kind of like 80s retro synthy kind of vibe, which I think is super cool. However, a couple of things that I would probably tweak if it were up to me. Number one, it sounds like there's some like either microphone or just cable distortion or somewhere along the way of recording this. If you like programmed this in hardware and as you recorded it over to software or wherever you recorded it, you got some noise coming in, and you can really hear it, especially during this outro. There's just like that kind of like static noise there. And I'm not sure if that was intentional as a creative choice. I don't think it was. And if it were me, I would probably just re-record it if you could without getting a bunch of that noise in there. The other thing that I thought was really could use a little bit of love was you did some really hard panning here. And I think in some cases you can get away with doing like really crazy panning. But it did make it feel a little bit lopsided because it sounded like in the right speaker, we were getting the main melody part and it was louder than everything else. So the whole mix kind of felt shifted a little bit to one side. Yeah, I think the tape hiss, if that's intentional, I would maybe tone it down a tiny bit. Otherwise, I might, or I just kind of get rid of it. So yeah, it's panned super. Some of the sounds are panned really hard left and right, and the right side is definitely louder than the left. And I think you could tone that down a little bit by not going quite so hard with your panning. So instead of going like all the way left and all the way right, go like 60, 70, 80% left and right with some of those sounds. And that way it doesn't feel quite so shifted to one side or another. Other than that, like I said, I think if as long as you're kind of going for that 80s sound, I think you're doing a really good job. Some of the sounds felt a little piercing. Um, like some of those like higher pitched notes, especially over here, like that note is like a little jarring. And so I think you could maybe EQ some of those high frequencies and tone some of those like super high notes down a little bit, so they're not quite so kind of like ear piercing. But I think a lot of the rest of the stuff you have going on is great. It almost has this kind of like theremin vibe to it, as because all the notes kind of glide from one into another. It has a little bit of like a theremin kind of feeling, which I'm digging. I like theremins. Also, occasionally there's a little bit of like clicking in the background, and I'm not sure what's causing that. I notice it especially right here, right around the 1 minute mark. It might have to do something with either the attack or the release on one of your synth parts. That again is kind of like either ending too soon or it's starting too fast and it's creating this little clicky sound. It's really subtle. I wouldn't stress about it too much, but it is something that if you were really trying to dial this in and make it really clean, I'll take a look into that. But yeah, the hiss is the thing that I think is the hiss and the panning are the two main things. I think if it were up to me, I would dial this in the most. But other than that, I think I said you're kind of nailing this old school Nintendo adventure kind of vibe, and then maybe tone down some of the higher frequencies. But yeah, hopefully that is helpful, useful feedback for you. I'm curious to see where you go with this. You said in the comments that you're planning on remaking it with modern tools. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about like what your strategy is for that, and how you're gonna kind of go down that route. Because I love all that like old school hardware stuff, and I think there's some really interesting things you can do with that. And so I'm curious on what your plan is from taking some like a workflow that's very hardware oriented. I actually started with hardware and kind of shifted into software, and now I'm back to doing both. But if you're going to be shifting into software, what kind of software, what kind of tools are you thinking you're going to be using to create this kind of sound? But yeah, again, thanks for sharing that, and definitely let me know. Send me another version if you end up coming back in here and redoing this and doing something a little different with it, or doing something new with an entirely new track using the same kind of techniques. All right, so we got one more track. I'm not sure who this is from because they didn't put their name in the thing. King KY, I guess. Also, for anybody else who is out there and wants to submit a track, this is the last one I have on the spreadsheet. So basically, if you put your link in there now, you'll be the next one up. So let's go ahead and take a listen to it. I'm gonna turn up a little bit. Dope. This is a really sick track. I'm really digging this. I think you're nailing this on a lot of different fronts. I feel like uh, your beat overall sounds really solid. I think your percussion is super on point. Like hi-hats sound amazing. I think the big boomy bass line works really well. It's like has this nice kind of dark energy, and I think a lot of your melodic elements that you're kind of using to kind of fill in that high space also are like nice and interesting and experimental enough, but they're also like they also still sound really good. And my favorite part is the saxophone. Honestly, I need more saxophone. That's one of my biggest complaints. The saxophone sounds really cool. It adds this nice kind of jazzy energy to this track. And I'm kind of bummed it only happens like a little bit over here and a little bit over here. And I think you could emphasize that more to really kind of like bring out a lot of that kind of character. And I know, you reference Kendrick Lamar in the title here. A lot of his producers and people he works with are either big in the jazz world or really heavily influenced by jazz and kind of combine that a lot of that jazz energy with the hip hop they're producing. So I think you could really go down that route and really play with the saxophone and make this more of an element to this track. And I would not be opposed to it. As far as things that I think need a little bit of love, so first off, during your main sections, I think the kick sounds pretty good. However, during the kind of like more relaxed sections, like your intro and your outro, like that kick right here, it's not quite as big and beefy as I want it to be. Like, I don't think you need to go like super extreme with it and have like a huge boomy 808, but I think having a kick that has like slightly more of a tail to it, slightly more decay, I think will do this track well. I think right now it sounds really short. It's like it happens and then it's done. Either that or layer this up, because I like the sound of the kick. I think the kick's actually sounding really good. Layer it up with another kick that has like a slightly longer tail to it, and I think that'll help beef it up. I made a video on layering kicks in live. I don't know what software you're using to produce, but layering your kicks up is a great way to help bring them out a little bit more. Kind of along the same lines, the snare to me, it just sounds like the classic 808 snare, which I know is like the sound people are going for a lot right now. But I think you can dial it up a little bit, either with a little bit of processing, like a little bit of effects, maybe like a hair of reverb on it, a little bit of compression to help bring it out a little bit more, or once again, just like with the kick drum, layering it with the slightly different, slightly more textural snare, I think will really help bring out this beat and really make it sound much more full and much more alive. And that way you still kind of maintain a lot of the essence of that kind of like, classic 808 snare, but it also feels a little bit more interesting than just kind of the basic snare. Other than that, I love all of the little melodic parts you have here. As I mentioned earlier, they all seem a little bit too quiet. Like here, you have this little arpeggiated thing, and then you have over here, you have this kind of like pseudo string kind of thing. Both are really cool. Both I think could be brought up a little bit in the mix, and I would not mind that. And then the last thing I think I could use a little bit of love is your first beat here and your second part of your beat are pretty much identical. I don't like you bring in that guy right there, but almost everything about the two beats are the same. And for me, I think it really helps that if you're going to have kind of like intro and then a beat and then a break and then a beat, the second time the beat comes in, something changes. Either you add in like another new melodic part where the bass line changes or the rhythm changes, something so it doesn't feel like you just copied and pasted the beat from one place to another. I think if your goal is to like, have somebody rap over this or sell this to a rapper, I don't think it's super, super important. But right now as an instrumental, I want to feel like the song evolves over time a little bit more than it does in terms of the first beat into the second beat. And I want the energy to change, maybe like, put in some more vocal samples or like a little something extra. So it doesn't just feel like, okay, we heard this one thing over here and now we're just hearing it again and it's basically exactly the same. But other than that, like I said, love the outro. I think overall you're nailing it. I think the like really, really solid beat here. It's just a few kind of little tiny minor details, and it's sounding really, really dope. But yeah, let me listen to the outro real quick, see if anything else I notice. Yeah, love the outro. And here you can really hear the kick sounds a little kind of thin compared to a lot of the other sound design that you're hearing there. But yeah, super dope track. Really into it. And almost all the feedback I have is like pretty nitpicky, like really kind of minor stuff. So I wouldn't stress about any of it too much. But if it were up to me, those are the things that I would take a look into. And once again, I'm not sure if you are still in the chat. I know you just added that track a little while ago. But if you would let me know what you thought of the feedback in the comment section below. What's up, Crank? How's it going? Welcome. Yeah, this is a dope track. Sweet. So that is all of the songs that are on the list as of right now. So if anybody wants to get a song in, Crank, I don't know if you got a track for me or not today. Now is the time to get in there. Bummer. That is too bad. So I'll hang out for a little while and see if anybody shows up and wants to share a track. Otherwise, we'll probably call it for the evening, and you guys can have a good weekend. Okay, so you are gonna send me a track, Crank? So I will hang out for a bit longer. Cool, and it looks like according to YouTube, I got a few more people in chat now. So if you want to upload a track, the link is pinned up to the top for the spreadsheet. You just copy and paste your link into the spreadsheet, and I will take a listen to it and give you some scathing feedback on it. Cool, yeah, I'll hang out for a bit longer. I'm in no rush. So how's everybody doing tonight? Anybody out there in chat? We had a lot of good tracks today. I feel like every week we get really good tracks, which is awesome to hear. And we get a lot of variety in genre, which probably makes me the most happy. Just to kind of see the different people in the community and what it is they're working on. Seems like we're getting a decent amount of hip hop, a decent amount of house music, and a decent amount of just kind of like experimental, weird music too, which is great. Those are all genres that I'm super into. Also, if anybody is out there in the chat and just wants to hang out and talk about music, we're also open to that. Nice. Yeah, get some tea, sit back, enjoy your Friday. Hopefully you had a good week, and hopefully you're going to have a weekend ahead of you. It will be filled with music. Nice. Yeah. I'm stoked to hear the 808 solos. Also, for anybody who is either submitting a track now or has submitted a track previously, all of the streams get uploaded to the channel, so you can always go back and check out your feedback later on if you want to hear what I had to say about it. Also, if you are enjoying the stream, you find this useful at all, whether you're submitting a track or you're just kind of hanging out and chat, please feel free, if you are not already subscribed to the channel, subscribe. It's super helpful for me. Or like one of my videos or all of my videos if you really want to, or comment on things. All that stuff helps me out quite a bit as I am fighting against the YouTube algorithm now to make sure that my content gets seen. Nice. 808s in minor blues, I think, is a great place to put the 808s. Just let me know when the link gets in the spreadsheet, and I will check it out. Oh, also, in case anybody is out there who was not here for the stream on Tuesday, we're going to do our first Catalyze sample pack song challenge. I need to come up with a better name for it than that. But I'm going to release a sample pack at some point next week, probably about a week from today. I'll release a sample pack, which will contain different kinds of samples. And you can download it and you can use those samples and make whatever kind of song that you want using those samples. I'm not entirely sure what the rules are going to be in terms of like using other samples and things like that. I think I'll allow it. Uh, and then you'll have 4 weeks to basically a month to take the samples, turn it into whatever style music you want and whatever vibe you're going for, and then send it back to me. And then I'm going to go through on the last Friday of June. I'm going to go through and listen to all of them on stream, and we're going to kind of talk about them and maybe even crown a winner. So, and then there'll be some kind of prize involved with whoever makes the best sample pack song. And then if it goes well, people are into it, I will probably repeat that and do it like just about every month, because it seems like a fun challenge, something cool to try out as the community, and that way people can kind of hear what other people are working on and hear the kind of vibes that other people are making. But I need to actually make the sample pack at some point this weekend. It's on my to-do list for the weekend. I'm gonna make a all modular sample pack. So I'm gonna use my modular synthesizer, make a bunch of drum samples and some loops, and see where it takes us. But if anybody out there has ideas for things we can do like that, either ways to make the sample pack challenge better, if you've done something like that in the past and it went well or didn't went well, let me know. Or if you have other things you think would be cool to do as a community, let me know, because I'm always looking for ways to make the channel better, grow the community, keep the whole thing, keep it not just about me, and make it more about everybody kind of working together and helping each other out, which I think is really kind of the cool thing about music, is when people get together and do stuff together, make cool stuff together, and become better producers together. Yeah, I haven't been using my modular as much recently because I've been busy making videos and teaching and things like that. So I'm gonna have some time set aside for the modular synth. Yeah, that's what it seems like. I've done some beat battles before. I know some people who've like they've done in the past, and just kind of talking to people through chat or just around. It seems like that's the kind of thing people get really excited about. So we're gonna try it, see how it goes. But I'm excited about it personally. And I might even open it up to the community if like other people in the community want to make sample packs. We could crowdsource sample packs from different people or sounds from different people, so that way it's not always just me making them. Yeah, I think there's a lot of different approaches for like the sample pack kind of beat challenge thing, because do you want to make it so they can only use those samples, like it has to be 100% those samples, or are they allowed to use other samples? Are they allowed to use other synthesizers? Are they allowed to generate their own stuff from scratch? Are they allowed to like record their own stuff? Like, can they record their own vocals on top of it? There's a lot of different directions I've seen people go with it, and I'm not quite sure which direction we're gonna go. I think for the first one, it's gonna be pretty open-ended and not gonna have a lot of rules. Like, here's the samples, do whatever you want with them, and if you want to do other stuff, you can do that as well. And then maybe later on we'll have more restrictive ones where it's like, okay, you can only use these samples. You can't use anything else, or you can't use any third-party plugins, or like you can use synthesizers but no other samples or something like that. Yeah, or like we have like a really restrictive sample set where like, you get like 5 samples and you have to make a song out of it. I think the first one I'll probably do like a handful of drums, like one-shot drums, and that way people can make a beat on whatever style they're into, rather than making drum loops. And then I'll probably do like a couple bass loops, a couple melody loops, a couple pad loops, something in maybe like 15 to 20 samples, some one-shots, some loops, and kind of see where it goes from there. Also, again, just a reminder in case anybody is out there in chat or just watching who wants to submit a song, the link is pinned up at the top of the chat, and that's where you just follow that and then put your song in there, and then I'll take a listen to it. Well, that's cool. So you just like randomize an image and you randomize an instrument, and then you have to like create something with the instrument that draws inspiration from that. That's pretty awesome. There's a lot of cool techniques for using visuals to inspire creative process. Like I know artists who will like they'll have like a movie playing in the background. They'll have like an old spaghetti western or something like that, and that way like as they're producing, they'll be making something, and then like okay, what do I do next? And then they like look over and like see whatever's happening in the movie, and then they'll be like okay, I'm gonna draw inspiration from whatever the shot is that I saw when I looked over, and like the sound is off on the movie. They're not even like watching it, but it's like occasionally there as like okay, that's my inspiration. Is this like sunset, or it's gonna be this like image of a single thing happening, and then they like go back to producing. Yeah, one of the favorite ones I've seen is at a school I used to work at. They would hand the students a pine cone and a microphone, and they'd be like, "Okay, here's a pine cone. You can do whatever you want with the pine cone. You can hit it, you can throw it, you can like hit it with a stick, you can toss it around, like whatever you want, and you can record uh, the pine cone, and then you have to make a song using only sounds generated with the pine cone." And some people came up with some like really cool, really beautiful songs um, using just pine cone, which I thought was like a super cool um, like creative technique for like, okay, it doesn't matter what sounds you start with. You can start with anything you want, and you can make something really cool out of it if you get creative with it and you really kind of like you know your tools and you know what you're doing. All right, Crank, are you still putting a track to send me? What are UON visuals? There's like geometric psychedelic visual things. Looks pretty cool. I actually just got um, this guy right here. This is a video synthesizer. So instead of generating sound, it generates video. And you can basically use it like a synthesizer, and you can send it MIDI, you can send it CV, and make some really cool stuff with it. So if you watched the making visuals with Max for Live video that I did on the channel a while ago, kind of does the same thing, but it does it in hardware. And then recently I've been taking that and then running it through Max for Live to make really kind of crazy visuals. I might make a video on it eventually for the channel once I kind of dive into it a little bit more. But that's called the Hypno by Sleepy Circuits, and it's super cool. It's been sold out for a long time, and I finally got mine, and I'm really digging it. Sweet. Well, I'm gonna wait a few more minutes. Okay, so you're not gonna be able to upload because the cover is not gonna be on it. A double review, the cover art review, and then the maybe we should have a separate cover art stream where I just give people feedback on their cover art. All right. Well, in that case, I'm just gonna do like a last call for tracks. If anybody has any they want to share, or Crank, if you got any questions you just want to talk about live, let me know. And like I said, I try to stream for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So I got a little bit more time just to kind of hang out if you are into it. Normally we have a few more people sending me tracks, so that was mostly what I had planned for the stream for this evening. Let me see. I probably can't showcase the video synth right now because of the setup I'm using for streaming, just to get the camera in there. Although maybe I could. Give me 1 second and let me see if I can do it without crashing the stream and messing up my whole life. And if I can, yeah, totally. But I need to try one thing out. I haven't tried this on stream yet. I'm gonna mute my microphone for a second in case I like knock it over. All right, so I probably won't be able to get it working for this stream, um, but I can probably for Tuesday stream if you're going to be around for that. I'll play around with this weekend a little bit, make sure all the the inputs and outputs and everything are working. And if you're gonna be around on Tuesday, just pop by and I will get that all set up and working. Because it is super fun to play around with. Actually, the USB is being kind of weird, so I feel like we might be able to get this to work. This might be. Yeah, the USB that I normally use for it is being used for the camera right now, so that's why it is not working. Yeah, we'll do it on Tuesday. Shouldn't be too hard to set up. And then I can show you what it looks like by itself, and then also running through Max for Live, because you can do crazy stuff with it. Sweet. So, well, in that case, I think I'm going to call it for the evening, unless anybody else got a song for me. Oh, we do have somebody. That's you. Cool. Sweet. Not there. Maybe you need to re-upload it or send the new link. Yeah, you can send me more than one track if you want. But the link's not working. Yeah, we have plenty of time, so you can send me as many tracks as you want, really. Also, once again, it's a little hard to tell if anybody else is out there, but if you are, feel free to put a link to your song in the spreadsheet, and I will take a listen to it. All right. Nice little granular processing at the end there. I like it a lot. I actually think this is really dope. It reminds me a lot of like early Edit, like Edit from the Glitch Job when he was doing like Crying Over Prose, that album, which is a fantastic album. It has a lot of it kind of like heavy beats and bass, but also kind of like a lot of like glitchy, cool stuff going on. So I'm digging it quite a bit. Really like the guitar. I really like the flute. Like occasionally you had like a little bit of flute in there and it kind of layered with the guitar really nicely. And I thought that was super dope. Yeah, I hear what you're saying about like having listened to the song too many times and then you kind of like lose track of whether you think it's good or not. Nice. So yeah, so I think that, yeah, overall, yeah, the beat sounds dope. The melody sounds dope. I think the bass line, the kind of like tuned 808s, I'm not sure how I feel about them. I like them, but I think it could be better. And I'm not entirely sure how yet. I just feel like I have no complaints as far as the beat goes. I have no complaints with the melody parts. I don't really have any complaints with the arrangement. It's that the kind of like pitching up and down with the 808s. I feel kind of like if it were me, if it were my track, instead of doing it with an 808, I would do it with a synth that has a little bit more glide to it. So it kind of like glides from one note to the next instead of being this kind of like percussive bass line. I have more of kind of like a smoother bass line that you occasionally like chop up and do glitchy stuff to. But I think that might be of like a personal taste thing more than anything else. Like I think it works here. I think it works when they're spaced out. And then later on you do like a lot of notes kind of back to back, and then I feel like that'd be a cool place to have like some glide in there as it kind of glides from one note to the next. Yeah, you can do some cool stuff stretching with beats mode. It sounds really dope. Yeah. Yeah, I'm super conflicted about the 808s. I love everything else about the track. You could try just doing some gliding, like do a little like pitch gliding from one 808 to the next. I don't know if you did it with audio or if you did it with MIDI or how you produced it. But I think occasionally getting some more of those bass glides I think could be really cool. And then I like these little kind of like, it sounds like you're doing like an auto pan LFO thing here. You do it a couple times throughout the song. You do it like 3 or 4 times. This one right here feels a little bit too long for me. Like every other time you do it, it's like real kind of quick and snappy. And here it feels like it goes on. I feel like that could be half as long and it'd be just as effective, if not more effective. I liked how you put that little laugh in there too. I think that was a really cool standout part. I think doing more kind of weird little vocal, like little slices and samples in there, I think would also help kind of spice up the arrangement and make it feel a little bit more interesting. Because I think you're doing really cool stuff with the glitchy stuff, and I think adding in either vocal parts or not like whole vocal parts, but like little vocal samples, little words, little phrases, could be really cool. Yeah, this is a super track. Like I said, I have literally no real complaints besides, I think, dialing in the 808s a little bit more, which I think is going to be a bit of a task of you kind of trying to like experimenting and figuring out what you think what works and what doesn't. But I love the beat. I think the beat sounds dope, and I love the melody part, and I love the flute, and I think overall it's working well. But yeah, that's a super cool track. We got another track from you. Any other thoughts, questions about this track? Anything else you want me to get into? I feel like it shows you got a really good sense of kind of like putting it together, this kind of like glitchy hip hop kind of vibe. All right, so we got another track.
This Pepper Tree gang now has 15 shotguns, 3 hand grenades, a keg of black powder. If someone gets killed, it's gonna go mighty hard with you.
Here's the thing about wonkiness. I listen to a lot of really wonky music, and the track, this track that we just played is, I think, a good amount of wonky. I think that talking about the septuplet. No, I think it's fine. I think if you're going for this kind of style, you want to kind of challenge people, right? You want people to listen to this and be like, whoa, like what did I just hear? Like why does this sound like this? What's going on here? So I think you're good with the septuplet and like keeping that level of kind of like glitchiness and weirdness. So I think I wouldn't stress about it too much.
Fifteen shotgun.
I mean, this one sounds dope so far. I'm digging it.
If someone gets killed, killed, gets killed, killed,
Nice. Yeah, this one sounds pretty polished to me. I think that in terms of production, I don't have a lot of feedback. I think the drums sound nice and big. It fits really well with the bass line. I think the melodies work really well with everything else. Um, it sounds like pretty polished, in my opinion. If I had to give any kind of like technical feedback, I think it would just be the snares are a little bit loud in the mix, and so I'd maybe tone those down like a hair. Um, Not too much because you still want them pretty loud, but they were just like they were a little bit louder than a lot of the other parts that I think need to be a little louder than it. I can definitely tell that this like has a lot more room on it for somebody to rap over it if that's kind of the vibe you want to go for. Um, Much more than the other song for sure. The other thing I noticed, the main thing I think that if it were up to me, if this were my track, what I would do a little bit more is the arrangement feels very consistent. Like everything sounds awesome, but like this section,
if someone,
like I can jump to almost any part in the song and it sounds almost exactly the same as almost any other part in the song. So I think having more of a dedicated, like, here's the intro, here's the verse, here's the chorus, here's the bridge, here's the other verse, here's the whatever arrangement you want to be doing with it. Um, Switching it up a little bit more because, like I said, you have really cool little like transitions. Like this sounds really cool, but it's very very short. It's not like
15
enough for a whole
shotguns,
like section. Same thing like over here,
3 hand grenades,
and it's kind of the same thing you're doing in both places. So I think by like using negative space, like taking things out, like the drums, aside from this little section right here and this little section right here, stay the same basically the whole way through. So take them out for a section. So it's like maybe like take out the kick and just leave the snare and the hat, or like take out the snare but leave and the hat but leave the kick, or like make them change a little bit, and that way you get a section that like has like it can bring the energy level down a little bit, and then when the drums come back, it's going to feel more impactful. Same thing with the bass line and or the melody. So like practice removing things to just create different like chapters to the story. And I think the arrangement will feel like it kind of goes from place to place as opposed to like it goes to one really cool place and then kind of stays at that one really cool place the whole time. And then occasionally you jump away from it, rather than having like I said, like a verse, chorus, bridge, or whatever you want the arrangement to be. I think that'll also be cool, especially if you do want somebody to rap over top of it. That way they can have like there's a little break, so it's not just them rapping the whole time, or have a like a more relaxed section so they can rap in like a different cadence, and it's not always the exact same kind of like flow the whole way through. The only other thing you might want to consider is that the mix, besides the snare being a little loud, sounds really, really solid as an instrumental. However, if you are planning on putting a vocalist on this or somebody rapping on top of it or whatever, you may have to do some tweaks to make it fit the vocal a bit more. So I think it's important to keep in mind that like the way I would mix an instrumental is slightly different than the way I would mix a version that's going to have somebody singing on it, because the vocals are going to be the main focus of attention, which means a lot of your kind of like background parts, especially like in some of your melodic parts, can probably be a little bit quieter, um, as well as maybe some of those drum parts can also be a little bit quieter. So if you are going to end up putting a rapper or vocalist on this, I would just keep that in mind, that you might need to like do some fairly major overhauls to how you mix it. But I think for an instrumental, as like just purely an instrumental, the mix is sounding really, really solid. But yeah, it's mostly arrangement stuff. If you can make the arrangement go more different places, then I think you'll be better off. But production wise, I love it. I think it's like, yeah, the bass line works well with the melody, works well with the drums, like everything, like you like got everything to kind of mix together in this really nice way. And it has this kind of like old school, like this bit more of this kind of like, yeah, a little more of like an old school kind of hip hop vibe, but it also still sounds really modern and produced in like a very kind of like, I guess, modern way. Cool. Well, I appreciate you sharing those tracks. It's cool to hear what you've been working on. These both sound really, really dope. Sweet. So I think at this point, I got through all the songs, and I think I'm going to call it for the evening. But I will be back on Tuesday, and just to do my like just random question answering stream, and I will make sure to set up the video synthesizer for that. So if you pop by, just let me know in the chat that you want to see what the video synthesizer can do, and I'll make sure I get that set up so we can get that all working. But other than that, again, if you are, if anybody else is out there and enjoyed the stream or got feedback on a track, like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Share it, tell your friends. That would be super, super helpful in helping me with the channel. And Crank, thanks for stopping by and hanging out and sharing some tracks, as well as everybody else who also shared tracks. You got one more in the thing? All right. It's short. I'll do it. Wait, is that you or is that somebody else? Is this also you or is this some other person? Crank. Either way, we will check it out. Nice. Is that Russian? Are you from Russia? That's cool. I mean, it's got the like the hyperpop kind of vibe going on. I think if it were me and you're like looking for feedback on how to make this a little better, gotta crank that kick. Right now the kick is like, it's there, but it's not quite doing it for me. I think you like, if I would have like a big blasting boomy kick in there to really give it a lot of energy. Other than that, I don't know about the shotgun in there. I don't know if that needs to be there. I think you can go a lot crazier with the vocal thing, especially if you like cranked it through a bunch of reverbs and delays and had like, and you chopped it up. I think that could get a lot more out there. Like, I think it sounds kind of like cool, but it's not, like you could go really crazy and have like, you could reverse that. You could pitch it up or down even more, have it like pitch change over time, put some delay on it, make it echo out. Like you could get really weird with that if you really wanted to. Also, the clap is a little generic, but yeah, it's like a cool, interesting, like weird little experimental hyperpop kind of thing. Nice. So you made this in 20 minutes. That was like the whole thing. I mean, it definitely has like, it's got some style to it, which I like. Cool. All right. I think that's a good vibe to end it on for the evening. Uh, I will, like I said, I will be back on Tuesday. Gonna do some video synthesis on Tuesday. Come with other questions, whatever you want. And if you have any questions before then, pop them in the Discord. Uh, Also, for anybody again who's out there and is in the chat, if you want to get your song submitted early, join the Discord. You'll get the link to the spreadsheet early on, so you can guarantee that your song gets listened to. Yeah, so really good songs, really good stream. Hopefully, you guys out there enjoyed it, whether you're watching it live now or you're gonna be watching the video later on. But yeah, I will see you guys. Crank, I'm really stoked with all the stuff you've been sharing. I definitely want to hear more of it next week. So hopefully, I will keep seeing you around. So have a good weekend, make some more music, and sample pack coming next week for the sample pack challenge. Good night, everybody.